Hey guys, welcome to another video from the PC Broker. I'm Jason. In today's video, I wanted to go over the top 10 reasons why it's probably not a good idea to sell your 10-year-old laptop. Now, recently, I think due to the poor economy, I get a lot of phone calls of people selling their laptops. And some of these people have 10-year-old laptops. And they're probably cleaning out their closet and they find a bunch of stuff and they find out their laptop still works, it's in good condition, and so they want to sell it. And I'm going to go over why this is probably not a good idea. So let's get into it. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying a 10-year-old laptop is bad, and I'm not saying a 10-year-old laptop is unusable. You could give a laptop to somebody that's 10 years old and they could probably get another 5 years, maybe even 10 years of usage out of that laptop and be completely happy. Okay, so I'm not saying a laptop is useless. I'm not saying it should go directly to the e-waste. What I am saying is if you're going to sell it to somebody, it's probably not a good idea, and I have 10 reasons why. So the first reason, and this is probably the number one reason and a deal breaker for a lot of people, is the battery. Okay, a battery that's 10 years old is probably bad, or it's going bad. I see laptops that have 3-year-old batteries and the battery's already going bad. So what more for a laptop that's 10 years old? Okay, and for me it's a huge risk because I offer a warranty when I sell PCs and laptops, and when I sell a laptop that has a 10-year-old battery, chances are they're going to call me back because the battery is bad, or they're going to call me back because it works great, but when they pull out the charger it only lasts 15-20 minutes and then it dies, or it dies the moment they unplug the charger. And then now I'm on the hook to figure it out, or give them their money back, or replace the battery, and that might be an additional cost of anywhere from $30 to $70 for the battery part, plus the cost and the labor to fix it. So it could easily cost $100 if you have to get it brought to a shop to fix the battery. So for those reasons, it's just not a good idea to sell a laptop with a 10-year-old battery. Second reason is operating system support. Windows 11 is not supported on a 10-year-old laptop. Mac OS is not supported on a 10-year-old laptop, and Chrome OS is not supported on a 10-year-old laptop. Not the newest versions, to be more clear. Windows 11 is 8th gen processors or higher, which is generally about 2017, 2018 or newer. Okay, everything less than that is going to be only Windows 10. Yes, you can hack these laptops to run Windows 11, and I even made a video about how to do that. But the reason why it's a bad idea is the moment they try to reinstall Windows 11, they're not going to be able to, because they probably don't know how to, and they're going to call you, or they're going to call me, and they're going to ask why. Or it's just, I'm going to have to, figure it out. Mac OS, it's kind of the same thing. Some of the 10-year-old laptops only go up to Catalina, some go up to Monterey. Catalina no longer gets Chrome, and some of the newest browsers, all the support is dropped, so you can't get the newest browser. And Monterey is coming up soon. You can still get the newest Chrome on Monterey, but it's just a matter of time before you won't be able to get the newest Chrome web browser. What does that mean? Why is that a big deal? Well, the moment they go to their bank account and they try to log in, they're not going to be able to log in because their bank knows that they're using an older version, a less secure version, and therefore they won't be able to log in. So any kind of financial websites or websites with high security, they're not going to be able to log into those. And what are they going to do? They're going to call you and say, hey, this laptop works great, but I can't log into my bank account. Can you help me? Chrome OS, it's kind of the same thing. When Chrome OS no longer gets updates, it's tied to Chrome web browsers, so everything gets cut off. So if that laptop got cut off 2 years ago and no longer gets updates, that web browser is old, and it's the same thing. You're not going to be able to log into secure websites. Number 3 on my list is smart buyers. Okay, A lot of buyers these days are smart. They go onto websites like eBay and they browse and see what they can get for 200 bucks or 150 bucks. And so they'll see that they can get a well-spec'd business grade laptop, like a 10th or an 11th gen i5 or i7 with 16 gigs of RAM, fully loaded for less than 200 bucks. So why on earth would they buy a 10-year-old laptop that has half of those features and doesn't even support Windows 11? These buyers know this, so they're probably not going to be interested in your 10-year-old laptop. Number 4 on my list is a low resolution webcam or no webcam. A 10-year-old laptop is probably going to have a 720p or lower webcam resolution. So if they're going to use this laptop on a lot of Zoom calls, they're probably going to be very disappointed with the quality. And people are going to know they're using a cheap old laptop because they're going to just look really bad. A lot of the newer laptops have a higher, crisper resolution, and it looks a lot nicer. Are you going to get a huge amount of complaints over it? Probably not. But it will mean you're going to have a person that's kind of disappointed once they use that laptop and they start realizing that the resolution on the webcam is a lot lower than what they expected. Number 5 on my list is the older version of RAM, which is DDR3. A 10-year-old laptop is most likely going to be DDR3 RAM. Now, why does that matter? Well, all laptops that have DDR3 RAM, pretty much all, are only going to support up to 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, this is fine for today, but later on when they want to bump it up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, it's just not going to happen. And the smarter buyers are going to probably know this, and they're going to want a laptop that has DDR4 RAM, because those laptops can go to 32, and some of them can even go up to 64 gigabytes of RAM. So you're kind of already buying a laptop that's just not going to be upgradable, or at least not as upgradable as you had thought. Number 6 on my list is no USB-C charging. A 10-year-old laptop is probably not going to have USB-C, and it's most likely not going to have USB-C charging. Now, this is a huge convenience to have. If you have a laptop where you took it on vacation and you misplaced the adapter or you forgot your adapter, you could still use your USB-C phone charger to at least charge the laptop and get through the rest of your trip. It's not going to happen with a 10-year-old laptop. If you lose that charger, you're going to have to go and get the original charger. So to me, that's a huge convenience, and you're just not going to get that in a 10-year-old laptop. Number 7 on my list is slow Wi-Fi. A 10-year-old laptop is going to have Wi-Fi AC at best, and a lot of the newer laptops, well, all of the newer laptops are going to have Wi-Fi AX, which is Wi-Fi 6. Now, almost all new routers today, unless you had one that's 10 years old, is going to be Wi-Fi 6, and people are going to want to get those faster speeds. In daily use, are a lot of people going to notice it? Probably not. If you're just logging into websites and using it for general use, you're probably not going to notice. But it's just something you're not going to get in a 10-year-old laptop. You're not going to get Wi-Fi 6. Yeah, you can use a Wi-Fi dongle and upgrade it, but nobody wants a dongle hanging off of their laptop. Number 8 is a high-resolution screen or a touch screen. Pretty much all laptops that are newer these days have a 1080p or higher resolution screen, and a lot of the laptops these days have a touch screen. You're not going to get those kind of things in a 10-year-old laptop. You might see some with a 1080p screen, but most likely a lot of them are going to be like 1400 by 900. They're just going to be lower resolution screens. And a lot of people that have used higher resolution screens are going to notice it right away. When you look at, if you're reading a lot of stuff on the screen, you're going to see the fonts are not as clear, they're not as crisp as you would on a 1080p screen. So for those reasons, a lot of people are not going to be excited about buying a 10-year-old laptop. So number 9 on my list is a low core count. A 10-year-old laptop is most likely going to have an i5 or an i7 that's dual core. Okay, they didn't really introduce quad core until about the 8th gen series of laptops. So any kind of laptop that's 10 years old is probably going to have a dual core laptop. Now, when people are shopping around, you know, on the new laptops, they're probably going to see 10 core, 6 core, 8 core, 4 core. Why would they be interested in a dual core laptop? You know, sure, on an i7 you might still get decent performance, but it's not going to be like a 6 core laptop. You know, you're going to get much better single core and multi-core performance out of that processor. You know, so for those reasons, people are just not going to be interested in a dual core laptop. So my last reason why people don't want to buy a 10-year-old laptop is no Thunderbolt 3. Now Thunderbolt 3, there was a version Thunderbolt 2 before that, which you see mostly on the Macs, and that was a weird port, and it was kind of like a failure. It's really not really usable today. But Thunderbolt 3 is great. It supports high data transfer speeds. So if you have an external SSD, you'll see speeds well over 1,000 megabytes per second. You'll get charging over the port, so you could use a USB-C charger to charge your laptop if it has the Thunderbolt symbol. And you'll be able to plug it into a monitor or AR glasses. So for me, any laptop that has Thunderbolt 3 support is a big selling point, and you're just not going to see that on a 10-year-old laptop. And I got a bonus for you. Number 11 is most 10-year laptops or older most likely don't have NVMe SSD support. They introduced it probably like around the end of 2016, maybe 2015. They started to introduce the 6th gen and 7th gen Intel CPUs. So in those you might get lucky and you might get an NVMe SSD, but for everything that's older than that, you're going to get SATA SSDs. So why does this matter? Most people are not going to notice the difference, in my opinion, between a SATA SSD and an NVMe SSD in normal daily use, like web browsing, Office Excel sheets and Word documents and stuff like that. Probably not going to notice much of a difference. But if you wanted to upgrade to an NVMe SSD, that's just not there. And the SATA SSD will go up to about 400 to 450 megabytes per second. Yes, the bus runs at 600, but after the overhead, you're typically going to see around 350 to 450 megabytes per second. Now the NVMe SSDs, those easily exceed 1,000 megabytes per second. So you're going to get much faster transfer speeds, much faster boot times, and just much snappier overall performance that you're just not going to get with the older SATA SSDs. Again, most people aren't going to notice it, but later on, if you wanted to upgrade, it's not going to happen on a 4th gen Intel CPU, and some of the 6th gen CPUs might not have had it in those laptops. So for those reasons, it's probably not a good idea to get a 10-year-old laptop. So guys, I hope you like this video, and I hope it helps in your understanding of why it's probably not a good idea to sell your 10-year-old laptop. You could still sell your 10-year-old laptop. You know, there are people out there that are going to buy it. You know, they want like a $50 laptop or a $60 laptop. But if you were thinking you were going to get $200 for your 10-year-old laptop, it's probably not going to happen. Now, there are special laptops. You know, you might have a vintage MacBook, you know, some of those that are like a 20-year-old laptop. That's a whole different story, and that's probably a whole different video of, you know, why those laptops are probably going up in value. But for everything else, you know, a 10-year-old laptop is more of a risk and a liability than trying to make a quick buck. So guys, if you found this video useful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see some more videos, and I'll catch you in the next one.